Good evening. This is the Daily Drum for Wednesday, April 3rd. Here's what's happening. The weather has been a mess today across the DMV. Tornado watches in parts of southern Maryland just ending. They didn't end without a tornado warning in St. Mary's County earlier this afternoon. There have been vehicle spinouts throughout the day on the Beltway, Route 50, I-95, and the Baltimore-Washington Parkway, and spots of flooding in Northern Virginia. Now, this bad weather continues to slow the recovery and salvage operations at the site of the Francis Scott Key bridge collapse in Baltimore. The Coast Guard says drivers were pulled from the water due to lightning in the area. Now, Governor Wes Moore used sonar images of the bridge to drive home the complexity of the undertaking.
When you're looking at how mangled this wreckage is, how collapsed this wreckage is, it begins to highlight the level and the challenge that we have in front of us when it comes to this recovery mission and to being able to open up these elements of the ports.
Work continues to clear a third, deeper temporary shipping channel so larger ships can access the Port of Baltimore. Fairfax County Police have arrested and charged 4 people in connection with illegal driving exhibitions early Sunday morning in Springfield. Hundreds met up where drivers did donuts, burnouts, and spinouts as spectators took videos. Fairfax County Police Chief Kevin Davis said their attention to the incident left other parts of the county uncovered.
So what does that mean for residential and business communities? It means you didn't have any cops protecting your neighborhoods, your communities, your businesses, because these criminals diverted all of our attention to handle an attack on one of our police officers.
One officer was struck by a driver. He is expected to recover. Another cop had people walking on and beating dents into her cruiser. D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser presented her $32.8 billion fiscal year 25 spending plan to the D.C. Council today. She called it the most difficult budget she's ever worked on, with $800 million in cuts to some city programs. The budget is balanced and includes no property tax increases. It does include a sales tax increase from 6 to 7% over fiscal years 2026 and 27. Bowser's plan includes a boost in spending for metro, public safety, education, and revitalizing downtown. Well, the D.C. government is looking for hundreds of employees to fill temporary jobs this summer. The Department of Parks and Recreation has more than 700 openings for seasonal employment at pools, summer camps, and other locations. Positions include lifeguarding, customer service, food service, and leading outdoor activities. Information can be found on the Parks and Recreation website. Let's get back to our look at weather now. Tonight, the worst is behind us. We have some lingering showers through the evening, lows near 40. Tomorrow, partly sunny with scattered showers, likely around sundown. Highs in the 50s. Well, coming up, the Trump gag order, liability for the Key Bridge collapse, Diddy's legal troubles, and more. Lawyers join us at our legal roundtable and some of the top stories of the week. Insight is next on WHUR and WHUT TV.
On the go and on demand, WHUR and WHUT are with you. Download the WHUR app today to get full access to shows, playlists, and our latest contests. To access WHUT on demand, download the PBS app and make Howard University Television your station. Catch up on our WHUT original productions anytime, anyplace on YouTube at WHUT TV. WHUR and WHUT, better together.
DC, Maryland, and Virginia, you might have noticed something a little different on Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm Angie Ange, our Director of Content here at WHUT. And Monday nights at 8 p.m., we like to call it Must See DMV. All your favorite shows from all your favorite creators, focused solely on what makes DC, Maryland, and Virginia so special. So set your clock, and we'll catch you at 8 p.m. right here on WHUT, Howard University Television, telling your stories on your station.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR, WHUT TV, and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the legal roundtable taking a look at some of the top stories of the week. And as always, we have some doozies. Former President Donald Trump gagged again. Who will be held responsible for the collapse of the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore? Legal trouble for Diddy and Lizzo. And can a law be written that forces your job or boss not to call you after hours? My guests tonight are legal analyst, attorney Monique Presley, host of Make It Make Sense with Monique Presley, and civil rights attorney Brian K. McDaniel, managing partner of the Cochran firm. Of course, as always, you can X me at HFisherWHUR or find me on Instagram at Harold T. Fisher. Hey, gang.
Hello.
What's happening?
Everything is well. How about you?
I'm doing fine. I must say that things are not really going well for the former president, Donald Trump. This happened just about 2 hours ago. The judge in his hush money case has rejected his presidential immunity argument. Trump is being charged with, of course, falsifying business records and has repeatedly tried to get New York Judge Juan Merchan recused from the case. As I said about 2 hours ago, Merchan shot down his bid to use presidential immunity as part of his defense. The judge also denied Trump's motion to delay the trial's start date. So it looks like we will be seeing the hush money case this month. Monique, your thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's ready, set, go. It's go time. It's go time, as it should be. The presidential immunity defense was always a ploy, a tactic, a sham. There's no lawyer worth his or her salt who believed that that would apply in this case or any of the cases for that matter, any of his various indictments. And I really would like to use this moment to say, good job, Alvin Bragg. Good job. When everybody was saying that's not the one that should go first, that one shouldn't have been filed in, should have waited, should have coordinated, blah, blah, blah. No, he's supposed to do his job as the same way everyone else does his or her job in their various jurisdictions, because it may be the only one that actually makes it before an election. And I think that this former president should be a convicted criminal by the time people have to vote, because that's for whom they're voting, if they so choose.
But you know, Brian, the thing about this is the new information about not delaying the trial. But the other less new, older, however slight, is what is this, the third gag order now?
Sure.
Where Judge Juan Merchan expanded the gag order, 2 days ago, basically saying that you can't talk about, the DA's office. You can't talk about my daughter. And yet, as we have seen time and time again, the former president has pushed the envelope regarding gag orders and the like. Have you ever had a client who was gagged?
So the truth of the matter is, anybody that makes the kind of statements that President Trump is in the habit of making should be expecting that the court is going to move with respect to what it is that the concern is with respect to President Trump or former President Trump. He makes a habit of making statements, not just because he wants to make the statements. We have to be clear about why it is that he says what it is that he says. He attacks judges. He attacks family members of judges. He attacks prosecutors and family members of prosecutors, not just for the substance of what he's saying, but he's actually hoping that he's going to move and motivate those people that listen to him to do what it is he's hoping they would do, make threats, put information out on social media, do whatever it is that they can do in order to discourage those individuals from doing the job that they are tasked with doing. And so I applaud Judge Merchan for making sure, one, that there is a April 15th trial date. I applaud Alvin Bragg for making sure that he continued to press forward and to stay focused on his case, to be ready should his case be in a position and posture where it can move forward. And I applaud Michael Cohen for making sure that he stepped forward and took responsibility for what it is that he was responsible for, because the truth of the matter is he was the driving force of that investigation and provided a great deal of the information that the prosecuting office is going to be relying upon when it comes to trial. So I, like Ms. Monique, and I'm sure many other people, are looking forward to the time when a jury is impaneled, the witnesses are called, the questions are asked, and for someone who professes that they're as innocent as President Trump, or former President Trump manifests or represents that he is, it's always interesting to me that he is the individual least interested in actually going to trial. If you're innocent, and you haven't done these things that you're alleged that you have been charged to have done, I would guess that what you would want to do is to have a trial so that you could clear your name. But what is clear is that his attorneys and former President Trump are most interested in delay and making sure that no jury gets an opportunity to make a determination of whether or not he's actually guilty or innocent of the charges that have been levied.
About this gag order thing, and I think in this latest order, there was a line, paraphrasing here, that said, if you violate this, that detention is possible. Is that a throwaway, Monique?
No, he could go to jail. I mean, you need to think about judges as people in positions of absolute power who are also humans. And so what you get most of the time, if not by way of temperament, at least by way of decision making, they don't throw around the power that they wield just willy-nilly. They use it in restraint, but they don't make idle threats. So it's taken a long time because, which is why I said I never could be a judge. Child, he would have had me at hello on my daughter. Listen. It's some things. You know, like me all day, fine, I ran, I agreed to this, et cetera, so on. But you come for people's children, for people's spouses, et cetera, you bring about a different side. And the judge is well within his rights to make a decision about threats, and decide that the statements by the former president so moved the needle for various sectors of our country and our citizenry that when he says something, as Brian is saying, he knows what he's doing. It's not just words. He knows that his words elicit and incite action and violence. So the judge is right here. And I don't know that will stop it, because I think as criminal defendant Trump, locking me up, that's good for business, right? I mean, because then he's a political prisoner. Because it's not locking me up because I've been found guilty and I'm about to serve a sentence. It would be locking me up, stepping me back, as we used to say when we used to have to go to Judiciary Square. It would be a step back for the sake of speech, for the sake of freedom. That's the way they'll turn it. And I don't know. I don't know whether he's got the moxie for it or not, but it wouldn't necessarily harm him, which is the real reason why I think judges, not just in this case, but in other cases, are loath to inflict ultimate punishment because he just works that. You know, he spins it up.
And that brings me to the next question. Is he getting preferential treatment, even though he has complained that he has been treated poorly? But I would imagine that as, John Q. citizen, if I were in a similar position and I were selling wolf tickets and violating a gag order, how fast would it be for me to go to jail?
You would have had monetary sanctions galore, probably by now. Do you agree, Brian? And then if the monetary sanctions did not work, against you and against your lawyers, because that is the other thing. But see, things happen in different areas at different times. I don't think he could get away with that before a Judge Chutkan. He puts his foolishness where his foolishness can have the longest shelf life and most impact. But when you're in front of judges that are like, don't you even think about it, then you tend to comport yourself differently.
Absolutely. I think it should be lost that Judge Chutkan was the first judge to actually issue a gag order.
Right.
And Monique is absolutely right. Judge Chutkan is the type of judge who does not abide foolishness, and threats against the judge are one thing, but threats against a family member are treated much differently, I would imagine. I have not, to be honest with you, had any of my clients threaten or make any statements the likes of which former President Trump has made about Judge Chutkan and Judge Merchant and some of the other prosecutors in the case. But I imagine, Harold, that if in fact you were a defendant and you made those kind of statements, you would have been on a much shorter leash, let's say, than former President Trump. And I think it's absolutely right to Monique's point that he doesn't really fear the retribution from the judge, because for him to be locked up would not necessarily be a bad thing for him. It is certainly something that they would spend. He would definitely be calling himself a political prisoner and then trying to raise money off of it. So there's no question but that, in my opinion, he's been given some preferential treatment, the likes of which John Q. Citizen wouldn't receive if, in fact, they were before some of these judges.
Yeah, I mean, where would you put a former President Trump? Rikers? Rikers Island?
They have places to secure people. They have places, they have people all kinds of places right now.
Do tell, do tell.
They have places to put people. It depends. He does not want to be found guilty in Georgia in a state trial, because he's going to get what he gets there. But federal maximum security, whatever. I mean, he would have to have
a kind of a club-fed.
He would have to have certain things, because there are enemies of the state that will try to kill a president. So the fact of his past office is a reality, and that's the other thing that I should have said about the answer to your question. Yes, preferred treatment that I don't believe is justified in some ways, but then preferred treatment, different treatment that is appropriate in other ways. Like he can't yield Secret Service. He has to be a criminal defendant who has regular marshals and then has Secret Service, because there are security interests of the United States at stake. So we're in very new territory, because it's taken a couple hundred years to get to the point where you have a former president with various and sundry indictments, to figure out how you treat them.
Well, one thing, Brian, you mentioned Michael Cohen, and we know that Michael Cohen knows where the bodies are buried. But is he a problematic witness in that it is well documented that he hates Donald Trump? He's said so many, many times on many interviews. So could that work in Trump's favor during this particular trial?
Yeah, so certainly they'll try to paint Mr. Cohen as someone with grievance against former President Trump. He has made his grievance well known. He spent some time in jail, and so he is certainly somebody that comes to the process with some level of bias. There's no question about that. The question is going to be whether or not there's any corroboration for what it is that Mr. Cohen will say about how it is that the money was provided, the reasons why it was provided, and then how it is that the documentation in support of the payments were constructed and how they're false. Because really what we're talking about are hush money payments to Ms. Stormy Daniels that were facilitated by Mr. Cohen, and that there are some documents that were submitted in support of those payments that were purportedly in support of their not being for the reason that Mr. Cohen will testify that they were for. I'm confident that Mr. Bragg has more evidence than just Mr. Cohen. Mr. Cohen may have been the individual or the the source of the original information, the likes of which that gave rise to the investigation. But I'm certain that that Mr. Bragg is going to bring to bear more evidence than just Mr. Cohen.
He's a narrator now. He's a narrator for the story.
No doubt about it.
Yeah. He's a narrator with testimonial evidence for a documentary case. This is a document-heavy case that does not at all depend on the lone testimony of a snitch, a prior lawyer who let go of attorney-client confidentiality, saved his own skin, did all the things, but then told the truth. And they know he told the truth because when he pointed over there, right there, look at that, it bore everything out. So not even the grand jury had to just deal with the testimony of Cohen. I don't think we would be here were that the case. Bragg is no fool. And I'm just saying, I mean, a black man runs for an office and has a target on his back. You don't depend on this one guy.
Yeah.
That's just not good.
We are at the Legal Roundtable looking at some of the top stories of the week. My guests are civil rights attorney Brian K. McDaniel and legal analyst attorney Monique Presley. I want to move on to our next topic. We may have to pick it back up on the other side. Okay. This situation in Baltimore, Francis Scott Key Bridge, really, really terrible for all kinds of reasons. The loss of life, the loss of commerce, the impact that it is having on the city. I live in Baltimore. I feel it. It's the only thing that people in Baltimore are talking about in the coffee shops. But I think the very first dig that we are now beginning to see, the adversarial moves that we're about to see, is Singapore-based Grace Ocean Private Limited owns the Dolly, the vessel that hit the bridge, collapsed it. They yesterday filed to cap their company's liability at somewhat $43.6 million. The value of the vessel, $90 million. The discussions around replacing this bridge, we've heard numbers like $1 billion. And even though President Biden says the federal government will pay for it, and all of the complications, Brian, is this as simple as a car accident on the street?
Oh, most definitely not. One, they filed that petition under maritime law, which in some way, shape, or fashion takes it out of the realm of where the car accident would be, right? And so they filed this in an effort to make sure that they had initiated the process to request a cap on the amount of damages that they could be held responsible for the entirety of the case. The number that they're suggesting, I don't think is going to be the number that the court would end up at, and there's a lot of information that the court would need in order to make a determination of what the cap would be. What would that be? So the number of purported victims, there are 2 individuals that were rescued, 2 individuals who were recovered, 4 others that had not, at this point in time, been recovered. And so there are those families, but then in Maryland, there are already caps that are in place, and then in terms of wrongful death cases, there are ways to calculate how it is that an individual might be compensated that get into characteristics of the individual who has passed or has been injured. And so those factors will be considered, but the court is going to be looking to gather more information before it makes a determination of what the cap should be based upon the filing of the ownership. It's no surprise that they would file it and even file it preemptively because they want to start talking about and thinking about what their exposure is, right, in terms of what's been lost in terms of life and in property and to the commerce as well.
Monique, I'm going to let you chime in on that on the other side of the break. Also, we're going to hear what Governor Wes Moore said about that very issue after the break. Stay with us. You can hear every edition of the Daily Drum Insight segment via podcast on WHUR.com. Of course, you can download the 96.3 HD2 app on your smartphone and hear the program live in its entirety. Stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM and WHUT TV. I'm Harold Fisher. John Mons is next with the original Quiet Storm. That's on WHUR. We'll be back in just a bit.
WHUT is dedicating weekdays at 10:30 a.m. to bring you the best of our locally produced series, like our Arts and Artists show, Artico, our energetic music series, DMV The Beat.
Get Out. When I wrote that song, we were fighting.
And stories highlighting the endurance of the human spirit with legacy.
He used to say to me all the time, when I die, the newspaper's yours.
So remember, tune in weekdays at 10:30 a.m.
Howard University Television PBS and WHUR 96.3 are joining forces Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. as we bring you Harold Fisher and the Daily Drum live as we take you inside the stories of the DMV. We've got the experts and the people that matter most to help you make informed decisions for your family and your community. That's the Daily Drum, Wednesday nights at 7 p.m. live on WHUT and WHUR. Better together.
Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUT TV and Sirius XM Channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We are at the Legal Roundtable taking a look at some of the top stories of the week. My guests tonight are legal analyst, attorney Monique Presley, host of Make It Make Sense with Monique Presley, and civil rights attorney Brian K. McDaniel, managing partner of the Cochran firm. You can X me at HFisherWHUR, or you can find me on Instagram at Harold T. Fisher. Now, before the break, we were talking about liability in the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse. I want to hear what you have to say, Monique. But before we do, I want everyone to hear what the governor said when he was asking about the company that owns the Dolly, the vessel that hit the bridge and collapsed it, and what he had to say about them applying for capped liability. This is the governor. Okay. Apparently we don't have that. What he said, paraphrasing now, is that we're going to look into it and make sure that people are held responsible. Your thought about capping liability. I mean, this is a terrible thing. There's no question about it. Very, very, very expensive, Monique. But y'all did it. That to me is the bottom line. You caused this, so you got to figure out how to pay for it.
I mean, did they? Do we know that right now?
Oh, come on. Are you going to hit me with a conspiracy?
No, I'm
What?
not hitting you with a conspiracy. Listen, okay, it's legal roundtable, right?
Okay.
So one, as Brian has said, caps are a part of life in Maryland, unfortunately. If this bridge had been located in D.C., and the suit was being brought in D.C., a self-insured jurisdiction where I practiced law for many years, working for the District of Columbia Attorney General's office, then there would be no such cap on wrongful death, and the jury could decide what they decide, and it would be based on life tables and work and all of those things, and there wouldn't be this artificial, you can only get this and no more. Certain states are like that. Texas, my home state, is another one. So that's real, and you're going to have to find ways around that, which the surest way would be settlement. But then two, you've got this foreign-owned vessel, right, that is not going to necessarily be embarrassed into paying the way an American business would, where everybody would just already be at the table and trying to figure out what the numbers look like and have it go away, go away, go away. Now, for trading purposes and for business purposes, this company still, wants to be able to do business in America and not just in Maryland, but all up and down where these vessels go. But I don't believe that it is the same. I think there is nuance to the way that you look at that. And then their lawyers are just doing what lawyers should in asserting a cap to begin the negotiations on that part of the process, because if I'm the lawyer, I want discovery. Was there structural damage to the bridge?
You mean prior to?
Prior to. Were there things that made the bridge, when you look at, I keep saying it's lawyers roundtable, but this is the way we look at cases.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm here for all of this.
When you look at the video, right, and you see, and I want to, again, I did it on my own show, but saying again, just offering deepest sympathy for those who lost life and for all those who were affected by what happened on the bridge. But when you look at the video and you see the inevitable
collision
impact, and then just like pixies, it collapses. Maybe the experts will say yes, because if you hit a foundational point of the bridge and if you hit with this amount of impact and this amount of tons and et cetera, then that is what's likely to happen. Maybe the experts will say, no, there were procedural fault lines and cracks here and here and here, and we can tell that from the pieces that we pulled from the wreckage, and we can see that this predates impact and et cetera and so on. And so then lawyers are going to start offering but-fors about whether something would have happened if this hadn't happened and et cetera. So there's no arguing that it wouldn't have collapsed that day but for the impact of the ship. But that's not the only analysis. The analysis is whether they were the only responsible parties for it. And then where wrongful death is concerned, I got other questions. I have questions about why police officers, God forgive me, I love you, Governor Westmore, and I love the mayor, why the police officers were able to stop traffic, but were not able to remove traffic. Why the message didn't come. Because people who make it off the bridge don't die, obviously. And if there is enough time for warning, then there's enough time for removal. Is there not? All of these things may get answered in the negative. And then, yes, that's when the barge owner, the ship company needs to pay handsomely, pay early, don't drag it out. But I would want those answers as the lawyer on the case. What say you, Brian?
Yeah,
I was about to say, now for the prosecution.
Yes. So to your point, though, Harold, if I am a member of the family of someone who was lost, I appreciate everything that Monique has said, but I'm not concerned either way with respect to that analysis. Why? Because if it is that the ship was malfunctioning or hadn't been maintained in a way that was proper, that would allow it to navigate the bridge in a fashion that was safe, well, then I have a strong case against the manufacturer of the ship or the owner of the ship for the failure of maintenance. And if, in fact, there was some concern about the integrity of the bridge, well, then I'm still in a position now to maybe advance a claim against the city or the state, right? Either way, from a perspective of an individual who's lost a family member, I think that they are in a strong position to advance a claim for wrongful death. And matter of fact, given everything that Ms. Monique has pointed out, I would be glad.
Wrongful death?
Yes, I would be glad to have liability on both the part of the owner and operator of the ship and potentially the city and the state. Why? Because there is a larger pool of potential funds for which I can be compensated for my loss. And so,
and a quicker settlement.
And potentially a quicker settlement. But I think that the move by the defense attorneys or the attorneys for the owner and operator of the ship speaks to and signals the fact that they realize they have some problems, they realize they have some exposure, and they want to try to get ahead of what it is that might be coming down the pike by setting a cap.
And I think Monique made a really, really interesting point. This is not an American company. And so the shame aspect would play a role. Just if this were an American company and they had moved to cap or reduce liability, it would have been pitchforks and torches at their front door. And the letter of the law versus the spirit of the law, as you said, the shame factor would, I would think, be enough to have an American company, hypothetically, not do this.
Well, and also, who's going to do business with you? Because their mess up, their cataclysmic issues shut down an entire port. That shuts down a community. And frankly, it pulls business away from our area and forces
the Eastern Seaboard
industry to have to go elsewhere. So yes, for American, well, for any company that is focused on the right things. I have a port as a client, and in the lobbying and advocacy space, and nobody would want this. Nobody would want this because you've got real humans that you're dealing with at each of these ports, and it's not just only about the lives that were lost, which is obviously the most critical concern, but it's livelihoods, thousands of livelihoods that are being affected.
Can I ask you about the politics of this? Just throw that out, because when you talked about the livelihood, all of the workers, those that survived, those that are presumed dead, they are from Baltimore's Hispanic community, which is a huge political bloc, number one. This could be Governor Moore's step to the White House or his Waterloo, depending on how this is handled, because this isn't like a train wreck that'll be handled in a few weeks or a month. Bridges are notoriously expensive and difficult to build. When was the last time we saw a bridge built? It takes forever, and certainly he is in the kind of the infancy of his term. But what do you believe this could mean politically, not just Westmore, but for the state of Maryland? Because for a lot of people, who are hearing about this in other parts of the country, they're like, Maryland, where's Maryland?
Yeah, except for the ones that are being racists.
Yeah, well, then there's that.
And, that's the benefit of rampant social media, Twitter, X now, thuggery. People can say anything they want to say, and lots of people can see it. So you can have a Baltimore mayor doing a perfectly respectable job and be called like a hood, the DEI mayor. I'm sure you guys have already maybe so we don't need
yes,
to
indeed.
But we know what DEI now stands for. But where the governor is concerned, I think we push back on the politics of he rises or falls on this one scenario that he did not create.
Why?
Because I believe, well, here's me. I have an obligation to not allow for our leaders who are ascending and doing well to be intentionally hung at the altar of things they did not cause. Now, if he utterly fails in administrative duties as governor in the aftermath of something that he didn't cause, but utterly fail doesn't look like it takes 3 years to rebuild a bridge. Mm-hmm. Utterly fail looks like we give terrible contracts, we don't work in conjunction with the federal government to alleviate things for our citizens where we can, we're not communicative, et cetera, and so on. But this is bad. It's just a terrible thing that happened while he was governor. Fortunately, he right now has, I don't know, can I curse or not? He doesn't have a president who's going to call Baltimore an S-hole area that doesn't matter, right? The difference is that he has a Biden presidency where you have a president to step up and say, we're not waiting for it to get figured out whose fault it was. We're replacing it because it's necessary. Our hearts go out to them. We're showing up. We're partnering with Baltimore and with the state of Maryland in order to get this done. So a lot of the success of the gubernatorial administration of this aftermath will depend on the national lead. And I mean, vote, y'all.
Yeah.
Vote.
How about that? Your thoughts about that, Brian, the politics of it?
Absolutely. So if you know Governor Moore, if you had an opportunity to observe him in any way prior to this incident, and you've had an opportunity to consider how it is he communicates and what it is that he communicates when he communicates it, you know he's empathetic. It's one of his strong points as a leader, and I think it's one of the things that led to him being elected to begin with. People were able to connect with him. And the
nonprofit that he ran before becoming governor.
Absolutely. And so there was discussion even before the incident with the bridge about who it is that might represent the best opportunity for Democrats if, in fact, we were going to have someone other than President Biden run against former President Trump. And the reality of it is that his name was relatively high on that list. Mm-hmm. And so I think this does nothing more than provide him with a possibility for a national platform that he didn't have prior to the incident. And I think how it is that he responds to this is going to, in my estimation, lead to a great deal more confidence in him as an administrator, him as a leader, and him as a rising star in the Democratic Party. I believe that he's going to do what he needs to do in order to manage the reconstruction of the bridge. I believe that he's going to reach out to the community that's been most affected by this incident in a fashion that's going to engender even a stronger bond between him and his Hispanic constituency, him and his African American constituency.
And the working class white constituency, because this bridge is in Dundalk, which the lion's share, not all obviously, but the lion's share of those voters in that community are working class, white, conservative, and during 2020, 2016, Trump supporters. And so there are all kinds of things in play there.
But it's not lost upon him who it is that he has an opportunity to connect with. He is going to, in my estimation, use this not only as an opportunity to increase his political platform, but also to better solidify his relationships with these communities that are in some ways disadvantaged. And so I look forward to what it is that Governor Moore does in response to this crisis. And I don't know who it is that said that you should never waste a crisis, but this is an opportunity that it's sad to call it an opportunity, but it is an opportunity for him to display his leadership skills in a way that he would not have had had it not occurred. And I'm looking forward to what it is that he does.
Yeah, I hope that this recovery and the building, I hope it goes well. We all are going to be watching. I want to move on. A Lizzo fan?
Yeah.
It's about that time. So Lizzo says that she's off Instagram, but now she's back.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That just happened today.
So much news.
Yeah, that's right. So much happening. She's said that she was being bullied and didn't like the way she was being treated. Obviously, the lawsuit for her dancers is still going on, and now the attorney for the dancers is saying that this is just a distraction temper tantrum. Is it?
Was she? I didn't think she was just saying she was off of Instagram. I thought she was saying she was getting out of the business.
She said she quit. Yeah, she quit, but yeah, I'm sorry, you're right. She quit on Instagram.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
But now she's back.
Is she back?
So she says.
Back in the business.
Yeah, she says that she says that she's back. Maybe she realized just how much money she would lose if she decided to quit.
I'm sure she's not a dumb girl. I'm sure she probably knew before she made the statement about quitting what the money was, because she's self-made in the business. So I don't think it was I can't quit because I'll lose so much money. Like, that's not something you come and figure out.
I guess that's regular folks thinking.
No. Regular folks know too. You know before you quit your job, like what that check that isn't coming is gonna look like. Like maybe these knee-jerk reactions, but I do believe that in this society, with cancel culture, with all of the things that go with everybody having a really loud say, that there are real costs to the mental and physical health and well-being of people who have to face that heat. I've had a taste of the heat myself.
Yeah.
I've represented any number of clients who have lived under it for prolonged periods of time. It is not for the faint of heart. And so when people say, I've had enough, I quit, even if they change their minds, I credit the desire to be away from all of it, because it can be a very ugly part of the business of putting out your art, your creativity, etc. There are a lot of expectations in our country that go along with celebrity. I'm doing air quotes for people who listen to radio.
Yes.
There are a lot of expectations. We care about what they say about politics, though for real, we shouldn't. We care about which soda they drink. Why do we care? We care about, the way that they dress or where they choose to vacation. Why? If your voice does something for me and your music moves me and you keep on doing that, I'm good not knowing much else about you. Because sometimes it ruins it for me. But even when it ruins it for me, I do that quietly. I don't feel the need to go on X or Instagram and say,
or what have you.
I'm done with them. I mean, why?
With a flourish.
Yes.
Yes, with a flourish,
Like,
yes.
stop it all. And especially, as somebody who spent a bunch of years as a criminal defense attorney, I detest the way in this country it doesn't even matter whether you are presumed innocent or not anymore, because they kill you in the street. So even if the jury never hears your case, even if your case gets thrown out, even if you're found not guilty, where does it matter if you can't work? If your kids can't go outside without covering their faces, if you lose your wife, you lose your money, you lose your house, you lose everything in the accusation. So by the time you're cleared, cleared from what?
No. I'm going to move forward with another celebrity, and we'll start with you.
Sorry, I talked too long.
No,
Not at all.
I was loving to hear you.
No,
I was loving to hear you.
That with court's adjourned.
That's right.
I'm glad he's getting the next one.
Yeah, you're going to get it too. Did he? That's that's the question, Brian, that a lot of people are asking after his home in Los Angeles, his home in Miami was raided, of course, by Homeland Security. Which is interesting. We don't see a whole lot of that. Usually it's just, FBI, ATF, blah blah blah. But Homeland Security, and of course the allegation, and these are just allegations. Obviously, he has not been arrested of sex trafficking and sex abuse. What?
Yeah, so I'm a strong believer in the idea of innocent until proven guilty. Let me just say that to start. I believe in innocent until proven guilty, but there are parallels really between what we were just talking about, what Ms. Monique was just talking about with Lizzo, and what Mr. Combs is dealing with. There's litigation involved with both of those incidents. And so as it relates to Lizzo, she was very confident, very assured of herself, not afraid to put herself out there, would wear whatever she wanted to wear, however she wanted to wear it. But then came along this lawsuit, and the lawsuit in some way, shape, form, or fashion changed how publicly she was being portrayed and considered, because there were representations that she wasn't treating people that she was working with in a way that was consistent with the person that we knew her to be. In Mr. Combs' case, there have long been allegations of some type of behavior that was untoward or questionable. There's long been allegations that he was involved with sex trafficking and sexual abuse. There have long been these rumors about Mr. Combs that have persisted, and in some ways you can chalk it up to the fact that he is who he is and is as well known as he is as an entertainer. But then we have this lawsuit that comes about in 2023 from Ms. Ventura that was attended by allegations, and the day after she made the complaint is when the case was settled. Now, what does that do, right? What kind of climate does that then establish, or precedent does that establish? It's not a surprise to me that after she got paid in the way that she got paid, and not to say that any of the allegations that she made were either accurate or inaccurate, happened or didn't happen. I just know that the case was settled the day after it is that a complaint was filed. And those who might be motivated or interested in extracting some money from Mr. Combs by virtue of filing a complaint and then hoping that he's going to be motivated to settle the complaints are then in a position to come kind of out of the woodwork. Now, that's the context. But when it is that Homeland Security gets involved, when it is that in essence, I'm using air quotes now, the feds come to your home and execute search warrants, they have done so based upon a judge finding that there's probable cause to believe that the underlying criminal offenses, there's some probable cause to believe that those are true, right?
And this is Homeland Security. This, to me, this is highly specific. You know, as I said, this isn't about, this isn't about guns. This isn't the FBI. This is, like I said, Homeland Security, and where the allegation is about, sex trafficking.
But it's
not.
It's more than that. No, that they actually the underlying investigation does involve firearms. The underlying investigation
How do you know?
Involves because of the source of the information. And because of some of the reporting.
No.
Some of the reporting.
No. How do we know?
Well, some of the reporting also suggested that
Do we
the
believe
reason.
it?
Well, no.
Because I've only seen unnamed sources from unspecified parts of the government, and I categorically reject it.
Right, but they wouldn't be in a position to execute the search warrant had they not had some information upon which
Some
a
information
judge.
about some crime.
Right, but a judge.
We don't know what it is.
So, like I said, we're just talking about, the reported allegations. It's still.
Right. But see, what you're doing is what I think we can't.
Okay.
There are civil suits. There's one that, as Brian said, went up and went down the next day. Others followed. There are complaint allegations in civil proceedings. That's over here. There's this criminal matter.
Yes.
With Southern District, New York, with warrants executed on 3 properties by Homeland Security. Homeland Security does immigration. Homeland Security does terrorism. Homeland Security, yes, does sex trafficking, mostly connected to those things. They do those things, but they're also big and large and can be a bunch of places at the same time. So they're a useful agency.
So you're
right?
suggesting there's overlap?
I'm saying I don't know that there is any overlap.
I'm talking about with the agencies.
I'm saying that SDNY chose their agency. They could have probably used who they wanted to use. If they wanted to use local FBI in 3 different locations, they could have. It wouldn't have been as uniform, though, as if they did Federal Homeland Security dispatched in multiple locations. So I don't read more or less into it based on that. And I think what we have to do is not assume. Because, again, what I know for sure is black man with a whole bunch of money gets allegations. It's a fast track. Allegations
there's no question.
any
No question.
area.
No question.
Civil, maritime, Let them allege Westmore did
No,
something.
We agree on that, but we cannot ignore the timeline.
We can't.
Right?
We
So
just
there's a
don't
time.
know
there's,
what it means.
No, but
I don't even believe the timeline.
But
Brian.
listen now. Let me
What you mean?
let me say this to
I don't
you.
believe that either.
Let me say this to you, and then you can tell me why I'm wrong about this.
Okay.
In September of 2023, there's a complaint filed after the original suit by Cassie was settled by a fellow named Rodney Jones. Now this Jones fellow, they call him Little Rodney. Little Rodney outlines in his complaint with great detail allegations of sex trafficking, allegations of underage violations in terms of sex trafficking. He also makes particular allegations as it relates to firearms that were purportedly acquired by individuals who are related to Mr. Combs, and then acts of violence that were purportedly perpetrated by Mr. Combs and one of his sons. Right? So it's after that we then get this search by Homeland Security, both at his LA home and his Miami home, based upon at least some information upon which a judge granted the authorities the right to execute a search. In that search warrant, it is alleged, and I agree with Monique, we don't have all of the information related to the actual affidavit in support of the search warrant, but it is alleged that they went not only looking for information related to sex trafficking and underage sex allegations, but also with respect to firearms, also with respect to drugs. And this is why you have the individual who was identified as his mule also arrested in and around the time that the search warrants were executed. I agree that we're going to learn more, but it's more than what it is that has been described generally.
I want to bring you both back when that happens, when we get more. Because I'm here for the big brains. Now, real quick, this bill in the California legislature, an assemblyman has written that could very well become law. Real quick, legislating whether or not your boss can call you in off hours on the weekends. Real quick, Monique, is that really going to fly, or does it depend on your job? You're a boss. You're a boss.
Well, and that's exactly.
Hello.
That's exactly what I would say, and I think Brian would agree with me. Sure, we're bosses, but we're bosses in service industries.
That's true.
And at a very high level of a service industry, which.
It's real quick because I've got 1 minute.
Lawyers, advocates, crisis managers serve clients, and we work in emergencies.
Yeah.
So it ain't no law that's gonna say my boss, if the boss's client can't call me, or really my firm boss. Like if Brian is my boss and it's 2 a.m, somebody got to go get dude out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how that works.
In the spirit of I understand the spirit of the law, but I also need my employees to answer that call.
How about that?
We need
look, we can't.
I'm gonna need you to answer that call.
Real quick, Monique, what are you working on this week?
Well, this week I'm working on autism. Yesterday was World Autism Day, which was declared by the United Nations a couple of decades ago. My oldest son is on the autism spectrum, and if you go to any of my stuff to make it make sense, at Monique Presley, we're doing a fundraiser to raise money for Reva Martin. I don't know if
Yes.
Reva Martin has Special Needs Network, and we're selling these specialty candles. The name of the candle is A Good Day, because we would like to provide some good days to caregivers, moms, dads, who have family members who are on the spectrum. So that's what we're up to.
Congratulations, and I hope it works out and is successful. Brian, 5 seconds. What are you doing, man?
That's awesome work. I'm in trial right now before the Honorable Judge Brandt here in Superior Court. I want to shout out my client, Mr. Karan Jackson, who's innocent. All of my clients are innocent. And so anybody needs to get in contact with me can just email me, bmcdaniel@cochranfirmdc.com.
Monique Presley, Brian K. McDaniel, thank you so much for joining the conversation. I love it.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.